here we are, back. My goodness. Let's just jump straight into it. Bloody hell, why not, you know? Now, today, I think I'm going to try and make a beat for username unknown for Jason, because he asked me to, like last week, and I haven't done it. So where better to do it than on stream? The question is, where do I start with this? And I feel like... You know, I'm starting with loops. You know, the idea that you're, as you're making music, you are trying to take other people's ideas and flip them. That's how music works. And if you're paying for sample packs, fucking use them. Flip them. Find a place to start with. There's nothing worse than a blank canvas. This is something that I really enjoy doing lately, is just taking two drum loops like this, cutting out the part I want from the other one, slotting them in. Who knows what it's going to sound like. It's like a little glitchy. It's wonky. But who doesn't want some wonk? Careful with your sample fades, especially when you're playing them in a sampler. But that's a perfect example of that kick. I was just ending that kick halfway through a waveform. Stuff just faded it out. That's where that click was coming from, but I faded it out, and it's all good to go now. In a little while, not too long now, probably about, I want to get this beat some groundwork, some foundational work started, and then we're going to bring a moother into the mix. In not too long, maybe 10 minutes. Hopefully I'm going to try and get a little further along with this. All right, this is going to be... Yeah, that's kind of giving it some movement. Cool. That's something I do a lot when I'm taking drum loops from in here. It's tedious. It can be tedious, but like, let's jump into... There you go. Two kick hits, and you got your snare. And all I would do is I'd grab that and I'd drop it down to the snare. That way I can mix a bit better. Tedious to pull them apart, but I think it's really worth it. Except now I'm also getting into that same territory of some dodgy sample. So I'll start fades. There we go, better. Main reason I'm actually going to do this is because I want to sidechain my ride to the kick. I really like that. I really like the combination of really chopped, processed sounding drums with some really natural sounding, especially percussion on top, and ride cymbals. I do a lot of my program really natural sounding hats and rides, but then I like the sucking sound of like reversed snares kind of leading into shit, or kind of this constant push and pull sound, which Flying Lotus does an absolute ton of, and is a perfect example of that kind of stuff. The whole track feels like it's undulating. Is that the right word? Like a pull. It honestly sounds like a black tar pull, just kind of like bubbling and pulling itself down and then up again. And I just adore that sound. I think it's very... what would I say? I guess I would say very like of the heavily compressed internet era, which, what I grew up on, so I relate to it. This is my absolute go-to. I do this fucking all the time. The flattenator, which does exactly what it sounds like it does. It flattens a signal like nobody's business. Let's turn off the sidechain for a second and just pump the flattenator. I'm going to turn it down because it's going to be fucking loud. And it's just 100% all the time. You lose all dynamic range. And I adore that sound. But it's too much. What I love to do is I like to sidechain it to something. Usually the kick. Take a bit of the edge off. don't need to lower that.
Hello.
Everyone should
Here's
be
my
seeing
face.
you. Amutha,
Excellent.
how you doing?
Just the afterglow of last night, man. Feeling really good. Really, really grateful that we're surrounded by people that are not afraid to kind of push their creative limits. Because then, like, that's how I know I'm around the right people. Because I don't want to be around people who are stuck within the confines of a certain genre or whatever. Like, these are people who are willing to explore, like true artists. So that's like a cool little thing that I felt yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, if we know anything after,
Yeah, that's wonky as fuck.
I mean, the right amount of wonk.
Yeah. I'm gonna sidechain the fuck out of that as well. I've noticed, especially like hanging out on hip hop subreddits and things like that, when especially it's a lot of young kids making hip hop, and this could be anything, making anything that's like computer based. In this day and age, at least, you know, not that it's always been computer based, but things that are computer based, I think it's easy to get lost in your sound selection, the technical side of making things. Like, how do I program my beats on the technical side? Like, how do I draw them onto the grid? And everything is grid based and sample based. And I've seen a lot of producers who I can see the way they're working is like, oh, you guys haven't played or thought about any other type of music besides what you can make with a computer. And I grew up like making like blues and rock music and a bit of jazz and stuff like that. And growing up around people like that, I think gave me a much better perspective of how to actually, I don't mean it to sound dismissive, but to learn how to actually write songs, to learn actually how to write. Oh boy, no, my point, I feel like I'm falling apart. As I make this point.
I want to say, like, I don't know if this is exactly what you were going towards, but like, just listening to you talking, I also like resonated with that. I can see the value of knowing the way an organic instrument moves, because it makes the track human. Like, you don't want to just churn out tunes that have no feel, no life. I think you need to have a bit of a connection to music, sound, like engage with like something organic, at least for a little bit, even if that's your own voice. Because like I think it helps you navigate through the digital terrain for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think that if I had grown up just purely on the computer and making beats on the computer, I'd have such a insanely different outlook on music. Like, it would be a lot more about precision, making a mix tight and clean, which is, you know, what you want as well. But like, you want it to sound human, you want it to have that element to it. So I understand. Well, I think I understand what you were getting.
Yeah, just understanding a wider range of music, I think, also gives you the history behind what you're making and and a lot more context, especially for making hip hop. If you're sampling R&B, if you're sampling jazz and stuff like that, it's probably a good idea to also listen to a bunch of jazz and understand kind of like what each instrument's role they're playing is, how those songs are structured, all that kind of stuff, and understand a little bit about the history about what you're taking from. But another point that you've kind of, things want to sound dirty and raw because humans are dirty and raw because humans are naturally like messy creatures. We are animals, and we like things that sound natural. I think even looking at like the kind of memes people like I've used this analogy before. When a company posts a meme, you can see that it is usually, maybe it's by like a designer or it's by someone who's in that corporate world. Things are a bit too precise. Things are a bit too clean. When the kids want deep fried, man, you got to give them the deep fried shit. Otherwise, they're not going to fucking vibe with it. They don't resonate with it. It's too clean. You got to add some fucking filth to it. Because when you do graphics and memes and stuff like that, you embrace the chaos.
I lean into it a lot.
Flute, you say? Yeah, 100%.
There are a lot of redeeming qualities of a flute. I love flutes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess we just coming back to the organic. It's just, it feels very. You can hear the human. You can literally hear the human element because you can hear that breath coming through so predominantly.
Yeah.
This is gonna be weird.
Maybe a reverb, and like so it sounds kind of distant, like you're approaching this land. There's like a city that's opening up to you, and you hear the music playing from the city or something like that.
Yes, cool as hell. There's some really interesting things in here.
Oh,
do I want a big fat bass or do I want something a bit?
I mean, you can't go wrong with a fat bass, man. What were you thinking? What was the alternative?
Man, it was really good to hear Sixpence talking about, like, he was talking about, like, when he first started making beats, because he's a sample flipper by nature, he wasn't adding a lot of bass, if any bass, to his beats for a long, long time. And he said, like, you can go back and listen to some of the beats, even the ones that he's dropped in the folder for the Vibey and crew. It's like, there's no real bass. There's maybe some bass remnants from the samples themselves, but he doesn't add in those punchy 808s and stuff like that. Until like later on, and it was so good to hear that because I did exactly the same fucking thing, and it's so good to hear people making the same mistakes.
I mean, I feel like you're the perfect person to ask because I think you saw my struggle yesterday on trying to make the bass fat because I was using a sampled bass, and yeah, I used the compressor, and I think that did help a bit, but I wonder if you have any like tips and tricks to kind of get a fatter noise.
Depends on how you're using a compressor. So compressors can be a bit, they can fatten, but they can also take the life out of a sub. If your attack's too fast, you might take the front end of, you might take the attack out of the bass, and then it doesn't really hit.
Yeah.
That's why but I do go for some presets like this one, bass synth subtexture in my bass driver.
Oh wait, okay. So is this free?
Nah, this one's not. It was, unfortunately, for a couple of days, and I grabbed it. But let's find let's find something else. Let's have a look in. I do like saturate. Okay, actually, one thing with subs, with basses, is the perceived frequencies are often far more important. So if I want my bass to really stick out of the mix, I actually might not add a lot to the low end, but what I will do is add a lot to the high end.
Oh.
So there's all the energies down here, but if I add that stuff back in,
okay,
a bit more of that, then that can often get it to stick out of the mix a bit.
Yeah, you're making it a bit fuller. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Because for the most part, people are feeling that low end and they're hearing the midsection. Actually, another one I do coupled with that is I'll have that EQ in there, but I'll also add a saturator. So yeah, sort of like a tube distortion. And then also what it's doing, because it's a saturator, it's actually adding harmonics and frequencies. And so now when you add in some more energy up here, now it's really popping off up here because you've actually added a bunch more to work with up there.
Okay, so it's about making the sound of the actual instrument fuller rather than trying to enhance the lower levels. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would actually not stress too much about the low end. With a lot of these, like, it's there, that energy is in there, as you can see on the actual chart itself, right? That's where all the energy is, but that's actually not what a lot of people are hearing necessarily. there's a lot of a lot of energy in here that sounds really good, but if you blow that out, like that, also that's just going to blow out your mix. Like that's going to fuck up every compressor that it touches from here on in. A lot of compressors will have bass presets, and I just kind of cycle through them, see what sounds good, maybe make some tweaks, but some often not. Fuzz Plus 3. This is a free plugin. This thing is. It's just a distortion, and it's filthy.
Damn, that's what I needed on Sixpence's vocals.
Yeah, auto-tune and then Fuzz Plus 3. My God, it's filthy. It's absolutely filthy.
I've been trying to figure out how to do this. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna stick with that. Let's see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
I think I went too ham. Something that I really love people who come up later in their career. And obviously I don't know if I'm gonna pop off. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the big leagues, but I've thought about that a fair bit, especially during the pandemic. Of like, fuck, I'm glad I didn't get much success, like huge success. I'm glad I got like the success I had when I was younger. Like I had, just lots of local community support of like, just sort of like giving me the free reign to try some shit, run gigs and even now, like the level of success we've got now to just run events and work with people is so inspiring, because I actually like the small scale while you're still figuring out like, where do I want to, who am I, what do I actually enjoy, what's the lifestyle I enjoy. Like when you pop off when you're young and you think like, oh, I need to be making singles, I need to be touring, I need to be doing all this shit, I also need to like walk the walk, talk the talk, and like act like they do on the magazines. I'm being quite hyperbolic here, I think, a bit flippant, but I still think like, if I had gone into that shit, I would have fucking hated it. Like I would have had fun, but I like here. I love working in on my own shit and in a kind of a small scale. And yeah, I think if I can find some success now, then I'm going to be much smarter about how I actually set up my life around my music.
Yeah. So like, I think, playing when you're young is a dangerous thing. You can kind of lose yourself in it if you never knew who you were as well.
You don't know shit. You don't know shit when you're even like 25.
I mean, dude, you see all of these. Look, I can only use, I guess, female artists as an example, being a female. But I've just seen the journey of so many female artists who start off very much like in their element, in their expression. And the moment they get a bit of money coming in, a little bit of fame, the industry kind of just pimps them out. Like, oh, well, why don't you just put your shirt off here and just do this and do that? And, they do it because they enjoy what they're receiving in return, which you can't blame them for. But, like, I know where my morals are at. I know why I would do what I would do. I know, like, so, it's just like, it's difficult to see these young girls kind of being manipulated by the industry, and like makes me kind of feel grateful that you're not in a position where you can be manipulated, I guess, when you're just older.
Yeah. Because you recognize recognizing like what you value. And obviously it's easier to say that I don't need money when I don't have money. But like, how many people come up in the industry when they're younger and then talk about like, man, none of these people I'm hanging out with are real friends of mine. Like they're all just here to cling on to like kind of the big fish, if that makes sense. When if I'm making music with people I don't like, not interested. Not fucking interested.
Yeah, man.
I think I've used this.
Crunch beat.
Yeah. So let me get your opinion on this actually, because when you're producing, do you find yourself stressing out that you're going to the same sounds too often, the same effects, the same processes and stuff like that, and like you hear like, oh, I did that on this beat and I've done it again on this beat, and it just keeps going through? Does that concern you, or is that kind of, well, yeah, I mean, I've got my own thoughts on it, but I want to hear what you think first.
Honestly, I don't even notice. So, for example, if I use the same effects on a certain instrument or on my vocals, the chances of the actual overall sound and feel being different is so high that I don't usually realize.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So I have I would say a kind of inconsistent sound. Like, if you hear my music, you know it's me, but like there's no particular set, maybe genre in a way to describe it. And that sounds really good. I think because of that, I don't tend to notice if I am using the same filters or whatever, because the overall feel of the track will be different.
I think you and I had a bit of a similar approach to production, is that like we kind of didn't learn the necessary basics at the start, and now we're sort of playing catch up.
Yeah.
And what that's actually done, though, I think it's frustrating because like maybe it's taken like, so like we hear certain people. I'm going to go off on this is kind of two different tangents here, but you know, I'll bring it all around. That, you know, we hear young producers, you know, like 18-year-olds who can come up and make a track that's like, what the fuck? How is that? That's radio ready now. And you're 18 and you smash that out. Or a better example is like type beats. Like people, you can see that like, yeah, young dudes and women are making, like, that's indistinguishable from a Kanye beat. Like, that sounds like a Kanye beat. How the fuck do you make that? How the fuck did you make a Travis Scott beat? How did you make a Tyler the Creator beat? And it just sounds like a Tyler the Creator beat. Because I think they took the approach, and a great approach, of like, what 808s are they using? What hats are they using? Just emulating. They just take those things and they emulate, and they get really fucking good at it. And I'm now doing a bit more of that, and that's helping me gather those basic skills that I think I kind of missed for a long time, which I do sort of wish I had learned early on. However, by the same token, yours and mine approach, though still different but quite similar in a way, I think it was a very personal journey. It was a very just like experimentation based, just like throwing things together and see what the fuck happens. And through that, when you hear an Amutha beat, you know that's an Amutha beat. And I believe that when you hear a Rhath beat, you know it's a Rhath beat. And now, even when I go to emulate things, you listen and I'm like, man, but there's something in there that's like, I don't think anyone would have done that except for Rhath. And it's because I spent 10 years, in some people's eyes, maybe making the wrong decisions, but in the long run, maybe that's how, you know, through that experimentation, developing that style. It's a slower process, but I think in the long run, I don't know which way is better, but I think it's worked out very well for both of us.
Oh, I think so too. It's funny because as you're saying that, the image of putting in my head, I've had conversations about this with Aiden, and he kind of entered into the music scene very later on in his life, and his interest was jazz. And he kind of started messing around. Jazz is a lot more, you know, flowy, and it has that element of freestyle and groove to it. So there's a different approach to music that allows more room for like you connecting to the instrument and you connect to the music. So he had to learn a lot of classical music for school. And what he would tell me is that there were so many people that were just so bound by the rules of classic music that jazz was like impossible for them. Like they just couldn't really even fathom it. And I think the same goes for when you try to emulate sound, and that's the way of learning, you kind of do, like, maybe in a sense, and maybe it's temporary, but you kind of pigeonhole yourself into, like, these are sounds that I know work. and you don't allow yourself that self-exploration that I feel we've spent a lot of time doing. So I definitely agree with that. I think it's been a good thing that we had moments to just like figure out ourselves, and now that we have our connection to our music, we can then branch out and learn those like foundational things that can assist in what we want to create.
Yeah. And we like, I think, however, now I know we've both had that frustration of like listening to our own work and going like, man, okay, there's some, it's all, I can hear it. I can feel that it's there, but why doesn't it sound as fat as Kaytranada or as anyone, right?
Yeah,
which is frustrating, but we're both learning those things now, so we'll get there. And I guess
that's it, man.
I guess I'm in it with no expiration date to this journey. Like I've always thought that, like, if people say like, if I don't really make it by 30, I'm probably gonna bail on this whole idea, and maybe I'll just get a real job, because they want to set themselves up for later in life. I'm like, nah, if I'm doing this when I'm 60, but I've still got a community of people around me, I'm gonna be pretty happy. I think that'll be, so fuck it. I'm gonna take my time with this shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that. And like, how lucky that we actually have such an awesome community. Like, we can throw events and people actually show up. Like, we don't have to try.
Because people feel that, because they've been fed the same thing that we've been fed. They've been fed the idea of like, what are you here for? It's mostly like fame and a sense of success that that is, a sense of fame, a sense of success that bleeds into the people who are just starting out. And it's so funny listening to like people on the come up who are just experimenting and starting out, and they talk like such hype about themselves and like what they're going to do, which is great. Big dreams, love big dreams. I'm all about those big dreams. But at the same time, when it's just, it all feels, when you're around that much kind of fake hype, it's really hard to feel that sense of community, because you just need honesty and support. And I feel like I could illustrate that point so much better. But I think that's like what a lot of people feel when they enter Vibe Union. It's just like, this is just some real shit. Like,
stable foundations.
Fuck the numbers. Like, not that we're not doing, not good numbers for what we are, but we've said for a while that like we build this amazing foundation of community and support with the right people, and there's no one in the community who I'm like, that person has to go. There's none of that shit. Yeah. And I've definitely met people who in the wider scene of Melbourne, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't fucking hang out with this person for more than 10 minutes. This is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
So let's find something else. Let's find a transition there. Let's find something totally... Is there something...
I'm not gonna lie, I feel something there.
Yeah, right? It might be trippy as fuck, but I might fuck with that. I might fuck with that.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay.
I find that I, especially during the breakfast beats, like I find I don't always fuck with my samples as much. If they work like they are, then they work like they are,
Yeah, I've been trying to learn to do that as well.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think a part of me feels like unoriginal if I keep the sample exactly as it is.
Yeah.
But it's not true. Like, that someone was inspired to create that, and like, you're doing them a service by like embracing their own creativity too. Oh, yeah, he's got it.
No music is original anyway. Like it's literally impossible to be wholly original. It's also really not interesting. I actually don't think to be in 100% original is usually that interesting for the audience. Maybe it's fun for the people making the music itself. Like I used to go to a lot of like experimental noise kind of gigs where they would be taking often classical instruments, cellos, violins, flutes, and stuff like that, and trying to move as far away from traditional music as possible. It's very textural, it's very cinematic, but yeah, really explorative, and a lot of it is very improvised based. Even if it is written, it has a lot of improvisation and exploration kind of written into it, and a lot of the times I was like, this is really, really cool because of that, because the fact that it's experimentative and improv. But as a listener, it's sort of it's so disconnected from everything else that we all listen to that it's really hard to connect with emotionally. So if you're trying to move away, if you're trying to be wholly original, like, people actually want to hear familiar sounds and then twist it ever so slightly, and that's sampling. Yeah. That's all it is, really. Is take an old R&B sample and flip it. It's like, oh, that's cool. That sounds like an R&B song, but it's a hard hitting boom bap track. So what the hell is the difference between that and doing this? Like we're still exactly. Getting in there and putting together this little jigsaw puzzle, and. Maybe we're just like, you can think of yourself as like a sound selector at that point rather than
that experimental sound that you were just talking about. It's not like you can put that on in the background while you're cooking dinner or something, it's not what the people really want. Like, I would be able to appreciate it purely because people are experimenting, but you're right, like when I'm going to like put an album on, I want to hear something like a sonata,
Yeah.
Something I can pop along to and not have to think about too much. Vibey.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, know your audience. So, like, not saying people shouldn't be making that shit, because they absolutely should be making it. If it's what they want to be working on. But yeah, if you're trying to be like original for the sake of it in a genre like hip hop or R&B or pop or blah 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 blah, like. No, you need to actually sound. You need to sound a little bit like everybody else, because that's how that's sort of you're in. And I find someone like Kanye is such a good example of someone who can take really popular sounds and then have these really experimental elements. But because it's such a familiar bass line, not bass line in terms of the actual instrument, but a familiar bass line in terms of kind of what you're sonically familiar with. It introduces you then into these new concepts of his. Oh, I love that.
The precision.
Really happy with that.
Oh! I forgot that's what we came from. Right. That hits. I'm thinking maybe a beat repeat. Is that crazy?
Yeah, after seeing you use it more last night, I want to get back into it. I knew it. I knew that having you here would just bring out levels of creativity that I haven't had for a little while.
Oh, legend.
Yeah, let's solo that. Yes, I'm having a good time with this now, and you know what it needs? I don't know if this is gonna work.
I don't know if I'm ready for this
thing, but maybe that's actually that's all right.
I can do the fake sounds in the background so people think that they can hear what's going on your screen. Okay, I'm not committed enough.
You're not far off what I'm hearing. Okay.
I feel like there should be a...
Yep.
Yeah.
What about...
I don't know what...
Instead of adding, take away.
Maybe in and of itself.
Maybe just a little ride cymbal, just a little...
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. Well, man, I'm going to let you take it home.
Too easy. Thanks so much for coming on and hanging out. Bloody
pleasure. My goodness. Dude,
having you part
thank
of
you
it.
so much for having me. I've had such a ball just being able to watch you doing your thing, and every once in a while it's like, hey, hey, and then watching you actually manifest this shit. Insane.
So much
Mind
fun.
blowing.
Hell yeah. Absolutely do.
Thank you, my dude.
Always love chatting about the theory of being an artist with you. I think it's really fascinating.
Oh man. Oh.
Well, be well, enjoy the rest of your day, and
Yes.
I'll speak to you bloody soon. Thanks so much, Amutha.
Yes. Thank you,
You're a
Rye.
bloody ripper, mate. Speak to you soon. What a bloody good time we've all had together. And now I'm going to put the final finishing touches on here. All right. We're going to have a listen from the start. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I've had a bloody ripper of a time. I always do. If you're not following me here, please do. Please hit the follow button. I do this every Thursday when my internet is working. So I do it every Thursday at 9 a.m. I'll do it next Thursday. I'll do it every Thursday until I'm dead. I'm saying it here. This is how we start. Well, that was a bloody fun time. Pretty chaotic little beat, but also quite soothing at the same time. There's a bit of cleanup to do that I'll do off stream because no one needs to see that. I'll send this to Jason. Hopefully he likes it, and hopefully he does something with it. What a fun time. If anyone wants a beat, by the way, if anyone is needing a little something, and with no obligation to ever use it either if you don't like it. But if you'd like me to make you something in particular, shoot me a video or a sound or some other music that you'd like as a starting point. Or give me just a collection of words. Like I want like the rippling waves off the coast of Puerto Rico. I want to hear that in beat format. Sure, let's work with it. Let's do something with it. I don't know what the fuck I'd do with that. Hit me up. I love making beats for people. They still end up being quite wonky, and it's always my sound, but bit of fun. Rhath, breakfast, beats, hell yeah. Mwah. Yeah, bye.